recorded. If you wish to record the meeting yourself, then please give due regard to the Council's protocol on audio, visual recording and photography at public meetings. Apologies for absence. Councillor Broadbent. Minutes from the meeting held on the 12th of June. Do I have a mover? Councillor Sharma, seconder, Councillor Basserman, all in favour? That's unanimous. Declaration of interests. None. So planning application. So the first.
My division, and I do chair the local police group, but I don't know whether
It's not really.
No, it's on me.
So item 4 is Zulu Foxtrot 24/01903/Oscar Lima, and this is the outline application for residential development with all matters reserved except access to land between Resolution Way and Pembroke Way, south of Mayfield Road, Whitby, North Yorkshire.
Thank you, Chair. Slight update on the recommendation. It's changed to include delegation to amend condition 3 as printed in the agenda to include the submitted access drawings. I'll just shortly move on to the presentation. So this is outline application for residential development with all matters reserved except for access. The application site is outlined in red on your screen, other land within the applicant's ownership outlined in blue. This is the development limit extract for this part of Whitby. As you can see, the whole site is within the development limits. This is a Google Earth image. You can see the grassland character of the site, the surrounding residential development to the west, north and east, and the wooded character of the valley to the south. This is the parameters plan that's been submitted by the applicant. If approved today, this would form an approved document that future reserve matters would comply with. As you can see, there's a large light yellow residential zone, and there's a smaller brighter yellow biodiversity net gain area shown for scrub planting. You can see the western access for vehicles to Resolution Way. There's a northern pedestrian access to Mayfield Road. There's an eastern pedestrian access to Drake Close, and there's an eastern vehicular access to Pembroke Way. And these are the engineering drawings for the accesses. So this is the one to Resolution Way. This is Pembroke Way. This is pedestrian access to Mayfield Road. And for Drake Close. Now follows a series of photographs just to give you an impression of the site. This is stood on the site looking west towards Resolution Way. And this is on the site looking north towards the rear of the houses on Mayfield Road. There's a variety of back garden lengths and boundary treatments here. So it's sort of some of them project into the site, others don't. This is looking east from the site to the backs of houses on Drake Close. And this is the location of the vehicular access to Pembroke Way. This is a shot over the site, looking over to Ruzza Plain. And this is the access location viewed from the carriageway on Pembroke Way. This is the existing pedestrian access to Drake Close. And again, just another shot over the site. And this is the pedestrian access to Mayfield Road. And finally, this is looking at the site from the Resolution Way access. And so concludes the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have two speakers. The first speaker is Lucy Rose. If you go to the mic just over. If you sit down and just if you touch the button on the mic, it should turn red. No, don't worry. and then you've got 3 minutes from when you start, Lucy. So 5 minutes now. Yes, five. Yes.
Good afternoon. We are here on behalf of a group of residents who live locally to this proposed development, all of whom objected directly to the council. We understand that not one local resident approved the plans. On Monday this week, the Scarborough News posted an online article saying that councillors were to be advised to vote in favour of granting this outline permission. Had it not been for this, our group would have not been aware that this meeting was even taking place, despite being assured by the planning department that we would be informed of any progress on the application. The most obvious objection that we have is that the land in the proposal is subject to a valid restrictive covenant dated June 1914. This covenant has a no building instruction on it. The owners of the land undertook to observe this covenant when they purchased the land in 2024. Properties which adjoin this land all have the direct benefit of this covenant written into the deeds of our properties. In fact, many of us purchased our properties for the views, knowing that there was the added protection of the covenant. We understand that covenants are not taken into account during the planning process, but because this development cannot go ahead because of it, then this whole process becomes a waste of time for the planning department and this committee and misuses precious council resources. The developer will have to follow a lengthy legal procedure to attempt to have the covenant removed, which we will strenuously resist. So we strongly suggest to this committee that this outline application be refused. Giving outline or full planning permission whilst the covenant is in place is pointless. Other reasons for objections that are really important to residents were loss of wildlife habitat, loss of green space, disruption during construction, loss of rural views, increased traffic, especially in the summer, drainage issues, and impact to B&B businesses. The other main objection, however, with the amount of new build developments that are being built and have been approved in Whitby over the last few years, there are hundreds of properties currently on the market. Sellers are struggling to sell their properties, which we know from personal experience, including the developers of the two most recent developments. Since 2022, 659 and counting new build properties have been constructed, with more large developments in the process of being built or receiving planning permission, 241 in the Stonebridge development alone. Whitby is losing irreplaceable greenfield and designated green space with each one. The town's housing structure is changing. Second homeowners are now financially penalised, so some are selling their properties, and there is a surplus of holiday lets post-COVID boom, leading to less bookings, again, which we know from experience. So there are lots of these for sale. This means that there are more existing properties, both for sale and to rent, becoming available to locals. There is not a shortage of housing stock in Whitby, but a lack of affordable in relation to the lower than average wage mixture of dwellings that cater for local needs. The fact that the council acknowledges that the only GP practice in Whitby is already running at capacity is surely in itself reason to deny any applications for more housing. Should we not sort out the lack of GP cover, the fact there are no NHS dentist places at the single dental practice, lack of reliable transport links, lack of jobs and skills training, and the nearest 24-hour A&E department being a 20-mile trip away before we build more homes that are presumably aimed at people moving here from elsewhere, as the average local cannot afford them. New housing is produced and priced to maximise profits for the company. Developers want the highest possible returns on their investments. They are a business. If they wanted to support the community, they would be building 100% affordable homes with a low profit margin. We would like to respectfully remind councillors that their role as ward councillors, that's our ward councillor, and as members of this committee,
5 minutes.
okay,
I'll
is to
give you.
represent and serve the community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we do have another speaker, and this is Annabelle Parkinson, and who's the agent of the applicants. Again, you have 5 minutes from when you start.
Good afternoon. Thank you, chairs and members of the committee for your time today and officers who have worked with us to reach this recommendation for approval. My name is Annabelle Parkinson and I'm here today speaking as the planning agent in support of this application on behalf of Terra Green Yorkshire. Before I begin, it is worth noting that as of April 2025, the stated deliverable housing supply for the Scarborough district is 2.7 years worth of supply. As such, the presumption in favour of sustainable development, as set out in paragraph 11D of the National Planning Policy Framework, is engaged. The scheme before you today will deliver up to 54 dwellings with 30% affordable housing, of which 70% will be rented and 30% will be low-cost home and shared home ownership. Through the course of the application process and in response to officer comments, statutory consultee responses and representations from local residents, the scheme has evolved significantly from that which was originally submitted. The applicant has worked with officers to create a fixed parameters plan for approval, which addresses the site's key opportunities and constraints. In ecological terms, this plan secures the retention of the area of broadleaf woodlands to the site's southwestern corner, as well as an area of scrub planting along the site's southern boundary to achieve an on-site net gain in biodiversity of 11.23% in habitat units and 224.63% in hedgerow units. This is well in excess of the statutory 10% requirement and weighs significantly in the proposal's favour. Despite recent changes to planning practice guidance, which simply requires surface water flooding to be managed appropriately, the parameters plan directly addresses a small pocket of surface water flooding located close to the site's northern boundary and ensures that this area will not form part of any future residential plot, albeit this surface water flood risk will be addressed through the implementation of a positive surface water drainage scheme. With regard to highways, extensive dialogue and discussion has been undertaken with officers throughout the application process. We're aware that the local highway authority have received comments from local residents over the years regarding vehicles parked on Mayfield Road, obstructing the visibility of drivers waiting to exit from Pembroke Way. To address this, the applicant has agreed to make a contribution toward the cost of a traffic regulation order relating to parking restrictions at this junction, as well as 2 additional junctions via a Section 106 agreement. A contribution will also be made towards the cost of a temporary traffic regulation order to cover the construction period. The applicant has also agreed to deliver a scheme of improvement works to upgrade and relocate 4 local bus stops. This will help to improve the safety of potential bus users and promote the use of sustainable modes of travel. Moreover, the applicant will deliver tactile crossing improvements across the Resolution Way, Russup Lane Junction in order to promote inclusive use of the footway and sustainable modes of travel. We are aware that representations have been made by local residents and Whitby Town Council regarding the potential for the site to be used as a rat run by drivers wanting to avoid queuing traffic on the A171 and B1416. Whilst the internal road layout is a matter reserved for detailed design stage, this matter has been addressed by way of a condition which requires the applicant to implement a scheme of highway signage alterations if a through route is proposed at reserved matter stage. Issues relating to historical slope movement pre-1947 have been investigated to the satisfaction of the local planning authority. As is the case with the majority of residential applications, further investigation works and any subsequent mitigation measures will be secured by an appropriately worded planning condition to ensure the structural integrity of the site is secured in perpetuity. As well as delivering much needed market and affordable homes in the context of under-delivery, the development will result in a significant Section 106 package. The applicant has agreed heads of terms with the council, which includes financial contributions towards healthcare provision, off-site commuted sums towards outdoor sports facilities and equipped play areas, ownership, management and maintenance of on-site amenity green space and traffic regulation orders, as well as travel plan and biodiversity net gain monitoring fees. Further, HBF data estimates that a development of this size would support the employment of approximately 187 people through direct and indirect job opportunities. I hope you will agree with me and officers of this council that this application will deliver much needed new homes in a sustainable and logical location, as well as providing a number of social, economic and environmental benefits. There have been no objections raised by statutory consultees and there are no technical or legal issues that would prevent the development of this site. With all this taken into account, I would like to thank you for your time and we hope that you find in line with the officer's report that planning permission should be granted subject to the signing of a Section 106 and the listed conditions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Members. Councillor Basterman.
Just a quick question. Maybe don't know the answer to this. Do we know how many people are on our housing waiting list now that we in North Yorkshire have a house in stock?
I don't have a recent figure to hand to respond to that. And the only figures I can recall are some years old, so I'd be hesitant to lodge them. But I know it was it was back in the day a fairly substantial figure. I think getting towards 3,000. But I'd say I don't have an accurate figure to hand on that front.
Thanks, Mr. Walker, for that. I assumed that there would be a large waiting list, to be quite honest. But thank you for your response.
Councillor Moore.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. A couple of questions then for me. This looks like it's linking up two quiet cul-de-sacs, and I'm wondering whether there's been any thought given to how that might affect community safety, leading to speeding or perhaps even antisocial driving. And perhaps also it would be useful to know if the applicant will be working with our designing out crime officer when they come forward with a detailed plan, so that lighting, footpaths and boundary treatments are done in a way that are keeping people safe. I saw from one of the pictures there, one of the routes that pedestrians might use, and it looks like it's quite narrow and dark. So I've not actually been out there myself, and perhaps that would be something worth considering, a site view for planning committee members who can really get a handle on it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just to respond on the cul-de-sacs, the possibility of speeding. Obviously, we don't have the final layout yet, but rest assured that if at reserved matters stage, the two cul-de-sacs are joined up to form a through road, Highways have reassured us that because we're yet to approve and have control over the layout, we'll be able to ensure that it basically has enough bends in the road and it can be designed to have low vehicle speeds to prevent speeding, antisocial driving, etc., and to hopefully deter it as a rat run if the roundabout gets busy. Moving on to the second point about crime, it's very much a matter that would be considered at reserved matters stage. Generally, the police are consulted and they would consider things like street lighting, the design of plots, defendable garden spaces, etc. So that will come in the future. Thank you.
Do you want to come in, Nick, as well?
If it helps members, clearly we have no, or you have no detail at the moment, as Mr Evans has explained. That will come in to reserve matters should you grant outline permission. But what I would expect is that because you called this in as an outline application and wanted to consider it, then it would make sense and follow suit for you to also consider any reserved matters, so you would have a chance to consider these sorts of issues.
Thank you. Any Councillor Jefferson?
What bearing? I know anybody can apply for a permission on any land or anybody's property, but bearing in mind what one of the speakers has said and the covenant dating back to 1914 and purchase of the land was on that basis, what legality has that got a bearing on an outline plan? Does that make sense to you? Because I'm saying you can apply for a plan anywhere, but I'm just saying what legality.
Yeah, yeah, perfect sense. Thank you, Councillor. They're separate considerations. You're able to grant planning permission, well, go with the officer recommendation tonight, and whether the applicant has the legal right to carry out a development is an entirely separate matter that we shouldn't have regard to. Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
My area, there are lots of covenants within certain squares that permits and revoke certain things, and I'm just thinking, I'm not saying it's a waste of time, but I'm just saying, if you buy a piece of land and know that that there's a covenant on it, then yeah, yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Jefferson. Councillor Pearson.
Thank you. Just about the bio net gain. Does it have to be considered at outline, or is that a full application when that comes in? Because it's very, very vague on there.
So the technically correct answer is that biodiversity net gain, the required legal 10%, is approved at condition stage after the reserve matters has been approved. But we have to think about some of the early stage implications of it at outline stage, which is one of the reasons we have the parameters plan. It seeks to protect, for example, there's a little pocket of woodland in the southwestern corner. That's of probably the most biodiversity value on the site. So we've sought to protect that. And that's the most, that's the highest level of detail that we can get at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pearson. I do have a question. 10.33, it states that the proposal failed the flood risk sequential test. Has an exception test taken place as well?
Yeah, that it's not required for this sort of development because the flood risk relates to surface water flooding. The exceptions test is required when it's river and sea flooding, which doesn't affect this site.
Okay, thank you. And also in the application, it does state about highways issues on Rosett Bank regarding potential HGVs getting stuck on Rosett Bank. I mean, it's quite concerning of considering the narrow high street of Rosett and the effects that potentially could have on those residents living there. So it's just something that can we just get more clarification on why it does say it cannot be conditioned? Why is that?
Yes, thank you for the query. My understanding is that the approach taken in Scarborough is that highway implications during the construction phase should be dealt with under the Highways Act 1980 rather than planning legislation. And I understand that's a consistent approach here.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Sharma.
Just a comment. Reading these papers, there's an awful lot of question marks in there. And I'm hoping that when we do get the full application coming through, that there will be sufficient reports addressing those questions, especially the stability of the land and so forth. They're all in there. I would like to see that. The other thing is, I'm not completely familiar with this site, and I would like you to consider that if and when it comes to full planning, that we have a site visit papered in so everybody's aware of exactly, because seeing one or two photographs that you showed us, the land does slope rather steeply, and I would like to have some reassurance that there'll be reports making sure that that can be accounted for. I'm sure that will be the case, and that's what will happen. I think at this level, I would be happy to proceed with it and give my consent to that approval. But all these questions will need to be answered properly at the appropriate time. I'm aware what the public speaker talked of, especially the statement, we are the representative of the people and we should respond to them. I think that is how everybody thinks of it, and that is what we attempt to do. But sitting in this committee, there is an additional burden we have to take in mind, which is to make sure our decisions are compliant with planning law. We're obliged to do that irrespective of what the feelings in the community are. That's the thing that guides us in making a decision, and we must never sway from that. And that's the basis on which I will be making my decision. Be happy to talk to you afterwards if you want to talk to me about, because there is a big gulf between planning committees and the public, and I think it's a gulf which has to be bridged somewhere at some time, and we should take every opportunity to do that. I would be happy to propose approval of this. That's everything. Thank you.
Thank you. In regards to a site visit, it potentially would be better to have a site visit at the beginning of this process now, rather than onto the reserve matters. So it's an option that members should consider.
Can I just respond to that? I don't see what that will do, because until you know where the houses are going to be, what impact will have on the land, and we don't know the structure of it, and we don't even know if this will go ahead. As the public speaker said, this there's a covenant on it which they will have to fight out in the law courts to decide. I think we should have a site visit when we have something to consider, and at this moment it's a general thing, and no matter what the lie of the land is, no matter how it appears, sufficient engineering and sufficient money thrown at it can fix it. And I want to see what the solutions are to the problems before I decide to give it that kind of go ahead. And I think we should wait for the second part of this to come through.
Councillor Basterman.
Yeah, it's the thing that concerns me is, and I respect what the planning officer says about conditioning traffic movement, but surely it is incumbent, as Councillor Sharma says, we're here to make a decision on facts and policies and one thing and another. Then Russell Bank is not the ideal way of accessing that site at all, and surely it should fall to this planning committee to impose a condition that access at all times is from the main A171. Surely, you know, that's something we can consider. It's been considered in the past, and no doubt Mr. Reid will correct me here, but when we did the wastewater treatment works at Scarborough, there was a condition there that all traffic had to access by the A165 and not Field Lane at Scarborough. So I'll be interested to learn that if we can't impose a condition like that. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Bassett. Do you want to answer that, Nicole?
Yes, thank you. I'm not going to correct. I wouldn't dare correct Councillor Bastiman, but I will update. Firstly, since obviously it's many years since that was actually a county council decision at the time. The government have, I think, quite reasonably, and successive governments have suggested that we should really narrow down and only use planning conditions when necessary. And a key element is we shouldn't seek to control things via planning permissions and planning conditions where there is other primary legislation. And it's very difficult actually for a planning authority to control what traffic goes up and down what road or what street. That really, for proper enforcement and control, that really falls to the highway authority through traffic regulation, well, through temporary traffic regulation orders and other temporary restrictions. As a planning authority, you could, in theory, put such a condition on, but the way to enforce it is through planning is very difficult. We'd have to go through a breach of condition notice and enforce, and it's also very difficult from a planning point of view to control, where a lorry is actually going, what its use is. So what I would recommend, I understand the control, I've no issue for that, but we can, if the planning permission is granted, and probably on the back of any reserve matters approval, because nothing's going to happen on the back of an outline permission, is recommend or make your request to the highway authority that for the duration of the construction, the highway authority put sufficient traffic regulation orders on to prevent heavy vehicles. Yeah, that's my advice, but as ever, it's open to members.
Thank you, Chairman, for allowing me to come back, and as ever, I'm indebted to Mr. Reid for keeping me on the right track. Albeit it was a county council decision, the wastewater treatment works. It was also a county council or national park decision regarding the potash mine, where traffic movement was imposed there, that they couldn't use Russet Bank and they all had to come in by the A roads. So I would hope you have given us an assurance this afternoon, Mr. Reid, that you will work and the department will work closely with highways to ensure such a condition could be considered, maybe when the application comes back. Thanks.
If I could comment back, so yeah, you can, yes.
Again, just to give some assurance, and because it's flagged up and it is of concern to members, if a reserve matters comes in, we will raise that specifically with the highway authority in advance as to what measures they can and are willing to take, so that we can report that to members when we come back with the reserve matters.
Thank you. Does any other members wish to speak? Councillor Jefferson.
I'm concerned, as you are, Chairman, about the flood risk, and 10.28, where we're saying one in so many years, this could happen, that could happen. And it's obviously within a flood zone or a flood plain. And I know when Jeff and I bought our first house and had it built, it's a long time ago, I always remember my dad saying to me, well, I'm coming up this weekend to have a look, because that was bogland, you see. But where we were at the top. So I said that was fine. But it didn't stop within 5 years of a flash flood coming down from the bank. And most of we weren't flooded, but precautions should have been taken in advance off a bank to prevent it, if you understand what I mean. And like the bungalows, which were in the zone, were completely flooded, and the houses were flooded on the ground floor. I don't know, because I've never been back since to see whether they've remedied what they wanted to do. But that's the thing that I was always concerned about. And as I remember going back years in planning, we always had trepidations of where properties could be built on floodplains. And if necessary, the ground floors would be garages, not living accommodation. And so I know we're not going for that at the moment, but there seems to be a lot of things weighed against this to me, rather than, and to pass something today, we're giving a developer some hope that he might be able to do it. But, and I understand planning. And as I said to you when I first made the address about the covenants, but I'm also concerned then that why do we put covenants on things if there's no legal value?
Thank you, Councillor Jefferson. You can, yes.
Yes, thank you for your query, Councillor. Just to provide some reassurance, I've brought the parameters plan back up onto the screens. Hopefully you can see it. It's near the northern boundary of the site. There's a very small area in light blue near the northern pedestrian access. That is the extent of the high risk flood area on this site. So just to clarify, there's the site for river and sea flooding, it's low risk, which is the best option in planning terms. The surface water high risk zone is very small in relation to the size of the site, and the parameters plan, which if you decide to go with the recommendation tonight, or this afternoon I should say, the parameters plan clarifies that there would be no, so basically the area of surface water flooding, it wouldn't form part of a dwelling or its curtilage. And just to add to it, when they install the drainage system on the site, it would go into a proper drainage system if it rains heavily on the site. Whereas at the moment, it lands on a farmer's field and it can pool. When you've got a positive drainage system on there, it can take the water away from the area at risk of flooding. There's often slight land raising involved to level out the site to make it suitable for the development. So in my view, it really isn't a reason to resist the application, but I mean, we're in your hands.
Thank you. Councillor Moore.
Sorry, Chair, just a couple more questions. Just with regards currently at the S1 or 6 monies, 2,500 towards the cost of a TRO, traffic regulation order, and 2,000 towards a temporary TRO. How much are TROs and why should taxpayers be paying the balance? Why isn't the applicant paying the whole TRO or the ETRO in this case? Because to my view and to my estimation, I've seen an ETRO, in my view, working disastrously locally, and they're around £5,000 to install. So these developers are offering to pay half, and taxpayers are having to pay the other half. And it seems to me that the taxpayers don't even want it.
Yeah, the TRO figures quoted at 12.1, they are requested by the local highway authority, and they have said that that would cover the cost of the TRO process. They haven't said it's to cover part of the fee to me. So as far as I'm aware, it wouldn't involve the use of taxpayers' money in that sense. I think the developer is paying for all of the associated costs because the need for the TRO is a consequence of the development.
Yeah, if you come back.
Just for clarity, because it says it's 2,500 towards the costs of a TRO and an ETRO, should that not be worded that they will be paying the full costs of a TRO and ETRO? Thank you.
Okay, going forward, I can ask the question and fine-tune reports in the future. Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Sharma.
Just some information. I've asked for a TRO on Russet Grove on the Greylands, and that was 2 years ago, and I was charged £5,000 from my locality budget. And at the moment, the cost has gone up. It hasn't gone down, or somebody's been swiped £2,500 from me. I would like to know which it is.
Yeah, if you could, Nick's going to come back in, but I just want to mention again about, I'm getting a view here that there's some uncertainty about the development. And I mean, I know Councillor Sharma has asked for a site visit, but again, I'd just like to repeat that maybe it's better to do it at this process rather than the reserve matters stage. So just state that again. Yeah.
Chair, if Councillor Sharma's moving a site visit, then I'm happy to second.
I'm not moving a site visit. I don't see the point we're going to get until what concerns me is the stability of the site. It's in the report. Until you know what weight is going to be put in there, how it will affect the site, I'm not qualified to make a judgment on that. If at the next stage they don't come up with something to assure me that the stability of the land will not be affected, that's the point at which that can be discussed. If they put one house, it means nothing. If they put 50 houses in a specific place, then that will, I think, require some kind of mediation to prevent anything undue effect on the site visit. I would like a site visit at the next stage because then we'll know what they're doing, where they're doing it, and how they're going to do it. And we'll be in a place to make a judgment about it. At this point, I'm seeing an empty field. I don't know the weighting on the land. I don't know how it's going to be affected or how they're going to drain it or any of those things. And only when I know those things do I think it's useful and in fact imperative that we have a site visit on this land. And we'll also know by then if the legal issues have been ironed out or not. And then we can decide if it's going to go forward. And it's the developer's money being spent on this, not public money. And if the developer is happy to spend that money, it isn't for me to tell him how to spend his money.
Thank you, Councillor Sharma. So I'm going to move that we have a site visit at this stage. I think, but I'll have to go through your motion. You've moved it, and I need a seconder for that. So I'm request a seconder for. So I'd like to move that we do have a site visit and defer this and bring it back to at a later stage after that site visit.
Yeah.
So Councillor Basterman has seconded that. So all in favour? Against, and one against. Yep.
I just actually I'll raise it now because it may help members the next time, because clearly this is going to come back and we will try and get clarification for you. But as Mr. Evans explained, the contribution towards the TRO is what has been requested by the Highway Authority. Well, firstly, now it's going to come back to you. We will get clarification on whether that covers the full cost, but it is open to members, and I doubt the applicants would have a major objection given the relatively small sums involved. But it is open to you to determine that the section 106 should include a contribution to cover the full cost of the TROs required. But as I said, I didn't think we were going to have time to come back to that, but we'll address that more fully in the next report.
So Councillor Basterman.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think in future then it would be helpful, certainly helpful to me and no doubt other committee members, if we had a charge list of what highways do charge for things, and it would certainly help us in the future when arriving at a decision. Well, depends which division it is, Councillor Jarman, maybe.
I think also an answer to the question you posted regarding the waiting list as well, which is quite important.
Extremely important, because there was a suggestion made that there isn't a waiting list for social housing. So, thank you.
Yes, Councillor Jefferson.
On one of the 12.1, £613.77 per dwelling will be approved to go towards Whitby Group practice. Well, we don't even know how many dwellings, do we? I mean, I think on an outline, I think we should have maybe have some vague idea, as somebody alluded to, that was Councillor Basterman, whether there's going to be 1 or 50, it does have a bearing, doesn't it? I know an outline is an outline.
Yeah, more detail, yeah.
But you're quoting a figure in here per dwelling, but we've not been given any indication.
I think that's a good point, and we will give more detail. The officers will find more detail next time.
Thank you.
Thank you, members. So the next application. Oh, I'll wait until the. It needs to be at this stage, doesn't it? Yeah. Yeah. Then it needs to be at this stage before this is the plan application. Yeah. That's what I was thinking, but yeah. Right. I'll wait until everybody.
Are you ready to go? We need to go with the second house.
I can't about it. Sorry. So, thank you, members. So item 5 is Zulu Foxtrot 25/00616/Foxtrot Lima Alpha. And this is the variation of condition for opening hours in relation to application Zulu Foxtrot 23/01094/Foxtrot Lima at Admiral 115116 Westborough, Scarborough, North Yorkshire.
Thank you, Chair. This application seeks permission to remove condition 4 that stipulates the opening of the Adult Gaming Centre, AGC, between the hours of 8 AM until midnight to allow a 24-hour opening to the public. Officers in their assessment factored in the original permission which approved the Adult Gaming Centre along this section of Westborough with restricted hours following objection from North Yorkshire Police and the Council Environmental Services Commercial Regulation Team. This was in the interests of protecting surrounding amenities and public safety, and also to maintain control of this part of the town centre beyond midnight. The AGC is located within the town centre core along a pedestrianised section of Westborough, with Huntress Row leading and Bar Street leading off Westborough and also pedestrianised, as well as being home to a number of residences at upper floor level. The immediate surrounding area is characterised by retail shops and commercial premises operating during daytime hours, with Huntress Row and Bar Street containing some restaurants and bars operating during the evening. In order to contribute to the daytime and early evening character, officers considered that the operation of the AGC to align with the majority of the high street users in the town centre to be acceptable with a midnight closure, noting after this time the pedestrianised streets within the town centre have a more quiet and subdued character, and aware of residences that lie close by. North Yorkshire Police identify the area to be associated with high levels of crime, disorder and antisocial behaviour, and therefore maintain their objection, highlighting that the applicant within the original submission agreed to a condition being placed on any grant restricting hours, which was fully supported by the police in light of the high levels of crime and antisocial behaviour. The police advised that the operating hours should therefore remain unchanged. Environmental Services concur and advise that they too wish to see the current operating hours remain in the interests of amenity and public safety, noting that no current businesses in the locality operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Your office is mindful of the requirements of policy DEC4, which seeks to protect amenity from noise, disturbance and other activities, amongst other things, alongside the advice contained within the NPPF to ensure that places are safe so that crime, disorder and fear of crime do not undermine the quality of life, as well as the authority's duty under the Crime and Disorder Act to do all it reasonably can to prevent crime and disorder in its area, including antisocial behaviour. We therefore considered that the 24-hour opening would draw people to an otherwise closed commercial environment. This type of establishment, described by the police as a honeypot, would encourage people to an area where high levels of crime already exist during unsociable hours of day, and your officers would not wish to perpetuate this. Further, as outlined within the report at paragraph 10.9, the submission of the application coincided with the opening of the AGC, which would suggest that the operator, despite fully implementing the AGC, aware of the restricted hours, this was never intended and only agreed as a means to gain permission, and therefore to allow 24-hour opening would materially diminish the scheme as approved, contrary to paragraph 140 of the NPPF. Your officers therefore recommend refusal for the reasons outlined within the report to members. Thank you.
Thank you. There isn't any public speakers, so Councillor Jefferson.
Thank you, Chairman. I welcome this report coming to committee. I've had a lot of representations with regard to this, obviously, and as our planning officers alluded to, under 7.2, we have a complete list there of listed crimes and then so many antisocial behaviour. It is very much a honey spot. We have problems already with the Balmoral Centre, which of course will probably be closed at that time anyway, but I pass it regularly, and if I come home late on the train, you can tell there's problems there already. This application, I know some of us had discussed this a while ago, when the property was being developed into this Admiral Centre, we couldn't understand why we didn't really know about what was happening. And then it dawned on us when we traced it down, when the decision was made in September of 23, it was in the early stages of the unitary. And we don't really remember seeing anything publicised. And Admiral actually bought the rights and the property of the person who had made the application. So it was quite a complicated thing. And I think, as Howard says, 10.9, they were quite aware of this when they purchased this, that the condition 4 was not in keeping with what we wanted. So I, speaking as a division councillor, think that the hours that they have at the moment are quite adequate for the needs. It's a very, very comprehensive report, very informative. It says about the diversion and adequacy of what we've already got within the area. So I would propose the refusal. Thank you.
So you're moving the recommendation. Do I have a second for that? Councillor Basterman. Councillor Basterman as well.
Yeah, thank you. I support everything that Councillor Jefferson has said there. And very often it's been alluded to earlier on in the previous application. You know, we rely on the North Yorkshire Police and the designing out crime officer, and they've highlighted it here that it's a problem. I'm quite happy to be directed by them and their experience on such matters. So I'm more than happy to support Councillor Jefferson with their recommendation.
Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Chair. Again, similar lines. I think the applicant's behaviour in asking to change the condition so soon after opening does raise questions to members. I think the current hours were agreed for a reason. I can't see any justification to change them right now. The police on the report call this a crime honeypot. I personally believe a 24-hour slot machine venue isn't leisure, it's misery for sale. Thank you.
Councillor Sharma.
I think I agree with everybody else on this issue. My knowledge of the centre, by about 11 o'clock, there's nothing open in it. So to have just one shop open, and therefore every single facility has to gear it up to make sure if there's a problem that they cope with it, is unreasonable. And I think we should avoid going down this path. And I do agree with what Councillor Richmore said. It's only a few months since they agreed to these terms, and to come back is reprehensible at the very least, and disingenuous in the process that took place in arriving at those conditions. And I think they should stick to the rules that they made. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sharma. So we do have a move and a second. All in favour? That's carried. Thank you very much. So before we leave, you want to give an update on?
Yeah, the people want a quick.
Oh,
Just going to give an update on where we are with.
do you want to just 5 minutes just to grab the coffee or tea? Or is it informal? Next bit? Is it informal?
Yeah,
Yeah. So that's meeting Thursday, but we'll